This webinar was recorded for subrecipients of the Tennessee Strong Families Grant on August 11th, 2025. Jill Murphy, Families First Prevention Services Act consultant at SWORPS, was our subject matter expert presenter. The training was designed to provide information about the 5 major protective factors for families: parental resilience, social connection, concrete support, social and emotional competence of children, and parental knowledge of child development and parenting skills. The slides and reference materials are posted on our webpage for your reference and review. All right, so today we're going to be learning about 5 protective factors for families from Jill Murphy. She is currently a SWORPS FFPSA prevention consultant for the East Tennessee region. She holds a Master's of Education in Counseling, focusing on mental health and family and child development, as well as a Bachelor's of Arts in Criminal Justice and Youth Studies. Jill has a diverse background in outpatient therapy, emergency foster care services, and higher education. She's also contributed to the initiatives with the System of Care across Tennessee and the East Tennessee Foundation. She's passionate about empowering communities and advocates for mental health and wellness throughout Tennessee, particularly through her work on ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and Building Strong Brains, which she presented for us last fall. And also, once you've heard Jill speak, you'll love her. She's awesome. She's one of my favorite Scorpies, and so I hope that you all enjoy her today. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Jill. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brooke. No pressure. So if you don't like me, don't tell Brooke at all. So hi, like Brooke said, my name is Jill Murphy. I'm with SWORPS at the University of Tennessee. I like to present. I enjoy it very much, and I would prefer if it was interactive, and it's kind of hard online. So I'm going to ask y'all some questions here and there that you can pop in the chat, or you can come off mute. So my first one was, where are you from? So I've been able to check in the chat to see where everybody's from. So that's kind of cool. So we're going to talk about the 5 protective factors today, and we're also going to kind of wrap it up of how they all interact with each other. So that's kind of cool. And I know we all work with families. We work very closely with families. We want them to be healthy and happy and strong. But while I'm talking today about the 5 protective factors, I want you to think about yourself too. So my first question for the chat, or again, you can come off mute, is how many of y'all are on here that are parents? And if you are parents, how old are your kids? Ooh, yay, people are listening. That's so exciting. I'm so excited that y'all are paying attention early on a Monday morning. Very exciting. Oh my gosh, it looks like we're playing bingo over here with all the numbers. 5-month-old, yeah, Brooke. I got to meet Brooke's little one the other day. That was fun. 33, 27, 10, 14. We have all the numbers. 7, 16. 4 children. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so while we're talking today, I want you to think about your world and your kiddos too. Let's see. All right, so the 5 protective factors we're going to talk about are parental resilience, social connections, knowledge of parent and child development, concrete support in times of need, and that's hysterical. Y'all's pictures over the last one, social and emotional competence of children. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is parental resilience. I need to see somebody. There. Jessica, your screen is on and I can see you. So I'm going to be watching you. So every once in a while, nod your head at me just to know that I'm making sense, okay? When we're talking about parental resilience, this is the one that I like to call the now what. If y'all have a mama like mine, she would always go, now what, when something else would happen. We're really talking about how well parents or people in general handle stressful situations. Life, my kids are 25 and 22, and my son always says, life be lifing. So it's really how things are, parents are handling things and stresses and challenges that come their way. And there's as many different ways to handle different stressful situations as there are people. Some are healthy, some are not so healthy. So what my question for you now in the chat is, if you've had a really stressful day at work, what do you do? What's the first thing you do when you come home? Brooke goes for a walk or run, eat. Depends what you're eating. I'm terrible. I've got a whole package of cookies over there. That's my go-to. A lot of times in our world, eat something, pray, work out, take a nap. Ooh, I like that nap one. That's always a good one. decompress on the drive home, snack, audiobook. These are some really great things, great ideas. Good, good, good. In our world too, a lot of times, the big stressors can happen. But a lot of times it's a lot of those little bitty things. And in our world, we call that being nibbled to death by ducks. It's not just one little thing, but it's like constant, always at you, always, all the time. So another example, besides the hard day at work, what if your car breaks down? I had a coworker, she was doing a statewide presentation. I don't know if it was for Brooke or for a different organization, but she has three littles. One is I think was in kindergarten and two in daycare. So she went to go throw them in the car, take them to where they needed to be. She had to come back and do her statewide presentation, and she's like super shy anyway. So she's really, really nervous, and she had a dead battery. So she was able to call her neighbor, and he was able to come get her car jumped off. She took him, she was able to make it work, and then he took her later to get a new batteries. But what would you do if you were on your way to work this morning and you had a dead battery or a flat tire or something? So if you could put that in the chat. Call my husband, AAA, husband, fiance. Just remind yourself that life happens. I like that, Melody, for sure, for sure. I love that. So as we know, life just keeps happening. And the thing we need to always remember is that these things always happen for our families that we get to work with too. I always want you to remember too that the parents are the experts on their families. So no matter how they've handled the stress in the past, they know, especially with their kids, they know what works and they know what doesn't work. So make sure to always ask them and maybe ask them how they've handled stressful situations in the past too, because they have. When I was working on this presentation, I thought to myself, what does really parental resilience look like? And we've all had those days. So I was thinking about not just my friend that had the dead battery, but I thought one day when my kids were a lot younger and I was trying to get out the door, I think we were on the way to Birmingham to go see my family, and my toddler at the time, I just put him in the car and I was running back and forth into the car. I'd pulled her around to the side of the house, and I was just grabbing the suitcases and I was throwing them in. And this is what I came out to the car to. This is my son. Y'all, I didn't even wear lipstick. I don't know where he got my lipstick, but I come out here and this is what I see. So I thought I've got two options, or a couple of options. I can cry, I can yell at him, or I can grab the camera. And luckily, for me, this is always reminds me of resilience look like, because this is my favorite picture in the whole world. Look how cute is he? Anyway. All right, the second one is called social connections. This is my who you gonna call one. And this is probably my favorite one. I'm a very social creature. Brooke saw me the other day and I was like talking to everybody and making sure everybody was good, having a good time. We had a little baby shower for a friend of ours. It was just a good day. And but I understand that there are people who don't get their energy from other people like I do. There are introverts in the world. I love you. I don't understand you, but I know you exist. We need each other. We rely on each other. And when we encourage our families to have those strong social networks, it provides, emotional support, practical support, access to resources. Let's look at my friend who had the dead battery the other day. She was able to call her neighbor. A lot of y'all have put in the chat, call your husband or a friend or somebody else, roadside assistance, to come help. So being able to have those social connections. The other thing too is not just who you're going to call when things go bad, but who can you call as a parent, as a mom, as a dad, as just a person when things go right. So put in the chat, who is that first person you're going to call when the baby starts walking, or you've had a really good day, or you got that raise you weren't expecting. Don't we all wish that would happen more often? So it's who do you have in your life that you celebrate the wins with, not just my car's dead. For me, it's my sister and my mama, my husband, my kids, husband, mom, parents. Group chat with your husband and siblings. Ooh, that sounds fun or horrible. Depends on on the day. Oldest daughter, best friend. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is not just for the families that we work with, but this is for us too. We all need those strong social connections. So when you're working with your families, help facilitate that. We'll talk more about this towards the end when we're talking about case planning too. And I learned about one, there's even a nonprofit, I think, out of Knoxville. It's called Safe Families, that they use volunteers as friends to partner with their families, just so they can have somebody to go out for coffee or talk to or dinner or just somebody to be encouraging. All right, I'm going to check the chat to make sure.
What did you say the organization was in Knoxville? What was it
Called
called?
Safe Families. They
Okay.
offer respite as well for families, like for the weekend. But yeah, it's called Safe Families. Because not everybody can, act as respite for some families, but they can, sign up to be a friend or a mentor. All right, knowledge of parenting and child development. Y'all, babies do not come with a manual. Brooke, you said 5 months old. You know, they don't come with a manual. I remember when we brought our daughter home from the hospital, my husband and I looked at each other and said, "Oh my gosh, now what do we do?" We could not believe that they let us take this baby home. I'm like, do they not know? We don't know what the heck we're doing. So for the next thing, I want you to put in the chat, who did you learn how to take care of your own children from? Mom, mother-in-law, mom, nice, grandmother. Jessica, I love your answer, yourself along the way, because again, you've learned what works and you've learned certainly what doesn't work. And it's the same thing with our families. They have learned what doesn't work as well. So make sure we have that conversation with them. They don't come with a manual. So let's also remember, take a step back, that maybe they don't know. Um, they didn't have the good mentors and people in their lives to teach them how to raise the child right. We've all walked into work and seen that intergenerational trauma. So maybe the parents know that what they know is not the right way to raise a child, but they don't know where to ask or where to look to find the best way to do it. And that's when you get to come in. You get to come in and you get to teach them, you get to mentor them. Ask, be upfront. Ask them what do they want to know more about? What is stressful about raising your child at this stage? A 5-month-old versus a 3-year-old are going to look very different. What are some behaviors that you would like to have more help with? Taught myself. Oh, absolutely, Laura. We were all different. I'm the youngest of four, and I swear sometimes my sister and I never had the same parents. She'll tell you that too. She'll tell you how spoiled I was. I got the laid back version, I think. So again, if we also come at them from a strengths-based perspective, the fact that they're working with you means that they want to do better. Concrete support in times of need. So what I get to do is work with alongside DCS and help think of ideas for the families that will prevent them from coming back into the DCS world. And one of the main reasons we get referrals, I think, is the lack of concrete support in times of need. This is food, this is clothing, this is a clean house. These are things that a lot of us actually take for granted. And this one to me is like a house of cards. So if one thing falls apart, everything else just kind of collapses. So I had a case not too long ago that came to the attention of DCS because they were having housing issues. But then reading through the case notes, I found just one little side comment that the mom was worried about potential layoffs at her job. She was working, but she was worried about potential layoffs. And what would happen if she did have, if there were layoffs at the plant she was working at? Well, then she couldn't afford, rent or food or anything else if she lost her job. Or same thing if you can't afford to keep your car up. Cars are expensive, not just buying a new car, but the maintenance of expensive are expenses. Expensive. The new tires and the oil changes and the windshield wipers. There's a nonprofit working just to work on windshield wipers and oil changes just to help families keep the maintenance going. Because if they don't have a car, they can't get to their job. If they don't have the job, they can't pay the rent. They can't take care of their children. And I know there's a big push in the DCS world about that poverty is not neglect. But if you think about it, the more stress you have, I'm going to assume a lot of y'all have had ACEs training. But as Brooke said, I'm an ACEs trainer, and it's proven that the more stress because of these lack of concrete supports that a family is under, the higher the rate of child abuse and neglect is. So how can we help that? If we go back to my friend Shauna, who had the dead battery that day, she did have the concrete support because she was able to, go later that day and buy a new battery. What if she didn't? What if she didn't have the neighbor that was willing to come help her out? So all of these factors that we're talking about are all interconnected and tied together. So when we're working with our families too, not just what kind of supports do they need now, but let's think ahead. How can we get them and build up that resilience? The case I was talking about where she was worried about losing her job, she did lose her job, but because the worker was already there in the home, they had looked at a lot of community support. Okay, if that happens, what can she do next? Let's have a plan B. A lot of the families we work with have never even thought about a plan B. They're going from one crisis to the next crisis to the next crisis. And so they've got resilience, but they don't necessarily have even a chance to catch their breath, let alone think ahead. So how can we partner with them and get those resources in place? And even if they don't need a food bank, make sure they have a list of food banks just in case, they're having a rough month or something, that kind of thing. All right, any questions about the concrete support? Social and emotional competence of children. And this is our last one, and I'm going to tie it all together with a neat little bow, and then we're going to talk about how to incorporate some of these into case planning. So the social and emotional competence of children, this really comes from their day-to-day, every day. Who are they interacting with life? Is it in daycare? Is it in school? Is it at your house? Is it at the neighbor's house? Is it grandma and grandpa's house? Whoever's watching, and they learn and they watch. Kids are always watching. How do you handle this situation? My friend Shauna with the dead battery, her children watched her stress out, take a breath, and get it figured out. And they're learning how to regulate their own emotions through here. Every day they're watching you and all the people, and they need practice. Right before this started, Brooke and I were talking about her 5-month-old and how it's fun to watch him grow, and he's growing out of one stage and into the next. So again, our families don't always know what's coming next. So how can we help them learn what to expect, what is appropriate, what is developmentally where they should be. So I have one more story for you, and this was in my world. So we were living, my whole family lives in Alabama, and my mom had come up. My kids were little. My youngest was probably not even a year old, so my daughter was about 3-ish. Yeah, in those terrible, fun 3-year-old years. So my mom had come to visit, and we had spent all day doing whatever. We may have gone to the zoo or something. I don't remember. But we had to stop at the grocery store. So I had my son in the buggy, and my mom had taken him, and they were shopping. Well, my daughter decided to have one of those fabulous fallout screaming fits in the grocery store. You know the kind where they're screaming bloody murder. They have no bones in their body. They're just flopping all over the place, leaning back, screaming. She was tired. She was hungry. She was just having a complete, utter meltdown. And if you've never heard a child having a meltdown in the grocery store, God bless you. But, now I can say, ooh, that's not me. That's that mama 2 aisles over, and I'm sorry for her. So knowing I knew that this was normal behavior, not fun, not enjoyable, but not completely out of the ordinary too. So I'm scooping up my daughter, who's again has no bones in her body at this point. She's just completely limp, screaming like crazy. I go find my mom, and I say, I'm taking her outside. Y'all take your time. We'll be ready for you. And y'all, my mama looked me dead in the eye and said, "Do I know you?" She had taken my son and gone on. She was so embarrassed by my daughter's behavior that she acted like she didn't even know who I was. I'm like, "Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it." So, 20 years later, we're able to laugh about it. But then, it was a little bit harder. But let's switch that up a little bit. What if I was a single mom? I'd come home from my second job. This was my only chance to go to the grocery store, and my daughter starts acting like this, and I have the stress on me that maybe I can or maybe I can't afford all the groceries that I need for the week. Are my food stamps running out? Did I still have food stamps? it could have ended very differently. For us, it's a funny story 20 years later. For some of our families, this could have ended much worse. So again, this is how it's all tied together. I had this support of my mom. I had the financial resources to buy the groceries. I didn't have to worry about my car. I didn't have to worry about what was going on. I didn't have to worry about, is this the only time I'm going to be able to go to the grocery store? So let's think about these things when our families are telling us, oh my gosh, my daughter had a meltdown at the grocery store, instead of going, oh yeah, sure, we've all been there. Well, we have, but what are the circumstances that she's also facing to go there? All right, so those are the 5 protective factors. Does anybody have any questions so far before we talk about case planning? Okay, I don't see any. Brooke, do you see any?
Nope, none in the chat. You're good to go ahead.
Okay. So what we do know is that families gain what they need to be successful when the key protective factors are robust in their lives and in their communities. And one thing I want to talk about communities too is, from one side of town to the other, we've got great folks on here from all across the state, and how it looks in Shelby County is not how it looks in Knox County, which is not how it looks in Sullivan County. So keep that in mind, and remember who you're working with and where you're working with. How can we build up these protective factors in the lives of our families and ourselves? Don't forget us, because self-care is important. How can we build up our own social networks? How can we build up our own resilience? One of the phrases that we use in ACEs is it's just because something is likely to happen doesn't mean it definitely will. So just because a family that we work with, or even us, have some of these risk factors, it's not predictive, because we can have those protective factors in our lives. So how do we incorporate into the case planning? I am so glad you asked. So for parental resilience, we need to identify their stressors. Talk to them, and this might be exactly why they came to the attention of your nonprofit anyway. So what are the stressors that they're dealing with? But also ask them about their current coping mechanisms. Ask them, what if you've had a bad day? What are your coping skills? What if your car breaks down? What do you do? How do they handle stress? A lot of the families that we get to work with have been told over and over and over again how they're doing things wrong. Who asked them, how do you handle it? How have you handled it right? Play that up. Let's find out what's working well for them. I think, to me, and that's huge, to make sure you come at them with direct questions, but from a strengths perspective. Tell me about a hard situation that you've handled and handled well. How did that make you feel? Let's go from there. Again, they're the experts on their families. Social connections, identifying existing connections. Y'all, I'm not going to lie to you. I know that the families that we work with have built a lot of bridges, burned a lot of bridges. So it's very important to come in and say, okay, what if those bridges are fixable? What if those bridges are not fixable? And if they're not, where else can we build a bridge? Where else can we make that connection? Being in the South, we have got a church on every corner. You cannot spit in the state of Tennessee and not hit a church, right? Is there a church nearby that would take them in, act as mentors? Find out where, include their friends, ask their friends, their families, their neighbors, who tell me about the people in your lives. Identify those gaps and figure out where can we, work on them. And a lot of people, me included, I'm the world's worst, do not like to ask for help, and that's okay. And my son and I were having this long conversation. I think I had a surgery a couple years back, and we were having this I hate to ask for help kind of conversation. And he's just the same. He hates to ask for help. And I said, well, when you don't ask for help, you deny somebody the opportunity to help you. There's a lot of us that like to help. We're all in the helping field. So who is that person that likes to help, that wants to help, and how and be specific. I have one brother who will do anything that you ask him to do, but you have to be very, 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 very specific in what you need him to do. He's not gonna be intuitive and think, oh, well, so and so needs this done. But he will be happy to be the one to be very specific in doing anything that you ask. So know the people around you and how to ask for help. Knowledge of parent and child development. Ask them the same thing I asked you. Where did you learn how to take care of your baby? You're doing a great job. Where did you learn how to do this? Or, tell me what more you want to learn. What are some things that are, what is this child doing that you're like, what is this? Y'all, I had my son, he's kind of a special bird anyway. And on the bottom of those felt tablecloths, they're like kind of plastic on the top and they have that felt so they didn't scratch on the bottom. We would catch him at one specific corner of the table. He would go underneath it and pull the fuzzies off of it and eat the fuzzies. Y'all, to this day, he's 22 years old. I don't know why he did that. You can ask him now. He doesn't know why he did that. What are some behaviors that you're seeing in your child that make absolutely no freaking sense to you? Because we all been there. So let's talk about that. And what do you need the help with? Help them identify, what they need, where they need the most information. A lot of us have misconceptions too. So, the more you talk to your families and get to know them, the more you're going to be able to help guide them to find the right ones. Of course, nowadays there's Google, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not when you're raising kids. Concrete support in times of need. What the first one we have to do is the immediate needs. What are you struggling with the most? And if it's food, if it's clothing, if it's diapers, if it's whatever, how can we meet those? Not just now, but how can we get you 2 steps ahead so in case this happens again, you already know what your options are and you don't necessarily need me. What resources do they have now? And then barriers. I know in Tennessee, and most of Tennessee is pretty rural. Transportation is a huge issue. Language barriers can be an issue. How can we address those ahead of time? If we address them now, then when this type of situation comes up, we've already built their resilience or helped them build their resilience. So if it comes up again, they know what to do. And again, y'all, it's the same thing for us. When this isn't really concrete support in times of need, but that resilience and those social networks all play together. My son, when he was in 3rd grade, started having seizures. Well, I knew of one friend whose daughter was having seizures too. So I knew who to ask. I didn't know what questions. I didn't know, this world I was being thrown into of epilepsy, but I knew that had the right people and they got me to the other right people of who to ask the right questions to. Because you don't know what you don't know. But then few years down the road, I'm able to be that resource for people. Social and emotional competence of children. What are their current skills? What do they know? What do they not know? Ask them about how their children express emotions. How do the children cope with stress? How do you as the parent cope with stress? How do you as a parent express your emotions? They're all tied together. Make sure the family knows that the kiddos are watching them. Make sure you do not leave out teachers. Teachers spend so much time with our kids. It could be daycare, it could be, in the classroom, whatever. But just like us, they interact differently in different situations. If a child's having behaviors at home, maybe they're perfect angels at the school, or vice versa. Maybe the parents don't see at home what the teacher's seeing at school. So make sure we get all the information that we can. And we need to find out what are our areas of need. Again, what are the behaviors that you're seeing that don't make a lick of sense to you? And Brooke agrees with me as a former teacher. Don't leave them out. They're a huge, huge, huge source of information. So the results that we're going to have from going through all of this is strengthened families, optimal child development, and the reduced likelihood of child abuse and neglect. We really want strong, healthy families in Tennessee. And I know it feels like we're digging and sometimes not even in the right direction, but our goal is nurtured children and families in Tennessee. Children don't grow up in programs, they grow up in families and communities. Questions, comments, not remarks. We are coming towards the end of the whole shooting match here, so I'm going to look at my chat to see if anybody has any questions. This QR code is for the FFPSA, so if you have any, if you want to know more about us and what we do or find your prevention consultant in your area, you can do that. Brooke, I think you have one here. This is the training evaluation. I'll turn it back over to Brooke. I am happy to stay on if you have any more questions. If you would like to drop in the chat, I know you have the evaluation. What is one thing that you learned? I always like to ask, what's one thing that you hadn't thought about or learned or think about differently from today? That might be in your evaluation too, but
Jill, I can send them the evaluation for us if you want to flip back to your QR code. And then maybe if
okay.
you could just tell them just a quick, like 2 or 3 minutes of how they might be able to utilize their consultant in their area just to make connections. That might be
Right.
helpful.
So yeah, good idea. So what we do is a lot of different things. Training is one of them. So if you ever need training, just let us know. We can see what we can come up with for you. Um, but we work hand in hand with the resource linkage in our areas, and we go to the community advisory boards, we go to health councils. Our goal is really to find out all those resources that we've talked about in each community. So there's 12 of us across the state. Um, so you have one, and all you have to do is look up on the QR code who is there. Um, Reminder to ask questions like you did to us. So, and what we do is, and our whole goal is to keep children out of custody and to reduce the likelihood of child abuse and neglect. So what are prevention methods or prevention strategies that we can help the families with? So if you have a family and you are struggling and you don't know what your options in your community are, reach out to us and see if we've got some other ideas too.
And I just dropped the FFPSA site for SWORPS in the chat, and I believe that has all of the, who you need to
Oh,
contact for
yeah.
which area that you live
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
would be helpful.
So,
I know you all have so many resources that I've never even heard of, so I think that would be great for you all to be able to use as a resource.
well, and like we talked about in the presentation, sometimes it's not those formal resources. It's not this program or that program. It's knowing Bob at First Baptist. He could help with this, that, or something else, or build, repair steps, or the church on the corner could help with this. It's a lot of informal supports that we know about too. And I've got 9 counties that I cover. And I don't know every resource in every county, but I know one person in every county that knows pretty much everything. So a lot of it, my kids give me a hard time. They're like, "Who do you not know?" And I'm like, "Well, is that what was that game, Eight Phases to Kevin Bacon?" I mean, I can figure out just about anybody and any resource in most communities. So hit us up. Let us know what you need. What can we do for you?
I had a question about the concrete support aspect, Jill. I know
Yeah.
like a lot of these organizations, that's a big part of their grant is providing like those concrete things, like baby
hmm
bottles, pack and plays,
Yeah.
things like that. What is a good way for them to like you said, like build that resiliency so that whenever they're not eligible for the Strong Families program anymore, how can they continue to get those concrete needs so that again, like poverty doesn't look like neglect for their families?
Right. And that can be a lot of different things. So there's resources, there's food banks and there's all kinds of resources. So let's work on it together. If we're working with a family and the qualifications end in a year, all right, so what's going to happen in a year? That forward thinking, that planning ahead is so vital and so important. Let's look in the community to find out where we can find that. Does that make sense? I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to look different in every community, but with the mom that we had that did lose her job, she was struggling with housing, and she lose her job. She was already thinking about going back to school, so she was able to sign up with Tennessee Reconnect and start that. So she was able to move into something a little bit different already.
That's great. Yeah, I love that forward thinking and forward planning because, most of our organizations are working with people from birth up to 2 years. So that gives you,
Okay. Yeah.
time to forward think. Melody says, I always tell my staff discharge starts the day you enroll them, setting them up from day
Oh,
one. Yep, with ways to
preach,
maintain
sister.
success.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that's awesome.
Melanie, I'm going to come work for you. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, I have one more question, Jill, to
Okay.
ask. Sorry for me to be asking all the questions, but um, I have noticed just in my previous work, I used to work with like extended foster care youth, right? And
Okay.
so when it comes to the social connection piece, it's almost like, sometimes when a vulnerable family or individual is enrolled in a program like what we're dealing with, how do you not have them rely on you for every single thing? It's like I used to have a kid text me, Miss Brooke, can you take me to the mall? I need to get this. It's like, okay, if it's like I need to take you to the DMV to help you get your license, that's one thing, but I'm not going to just like take you to the mall. So like how do you help build those kind of things and like also educate them how to like what's appropriate social connection. You know what I'm saying? With like,
And maybe it's because of the age of my children. So 25 and 22, and they just graduated from college and we're interviewing, and we had a lot of conversations about soft skills. Having a lot of people don't have those anymore. They're not used to those in-person interactions. Just even talking to my son about you got to send a thank you email after you've had a job interview kind of thing. Having those simple, basic conversations with the families that we get to work with. You know, um, you okay, you have one friend, or let's talk about the bridges you've burned. What happened there? And a lot of times it's going to come that they just wore 'em out. They just absolutely wore 'em out. They called Miss Brooke for every time that they needed to have a hiccup. They didn't know what to do. So how do we not wear people out? Where can we find the support that we need? Is there a church? I know I send a lot of people to Celebrate Recovery. Roane County, Tennessee has a really, really, really strong Celebrate Recovery, and it's not just for substance. Their thing is hurts, habits, and hangups, and they get a support group through the church and through the organization. So how can they? I've got a lot of friends. I've got one friend that I call and complain to. What I didn't mean it that way. You don't want to just call one friend and complain all the time. I have a sister like that, and she wears me out. Love her to death, but she wears me out. So you can only take so much of that. Again, who and talk to them about calling your friends for the with the good stuff. You won the lottery, your car worked, you got a new job. Talk to them about good stuff too. A lot of the families that we work with are so crisis minded that's all they focus on. That's all they think about is who can help me with this crisis, and they forget that good things happen too. So teaching them to spread the love, it'd probably be my biggest thing. What are some different organizations that you can reach out to for concrete supports as well as information? Does that make sense?
that's
Just like we
great.
don't want to wear our own friends out with using them all the time. And therapy, if they've burned that many bridges, my guess might be that they need some therapy on their own to work through some stuff. It's just a thought, just a thought.
All right, awesome. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I can go ahead and close this up. But thank you so much, Jill, for presenting on this topic and just for letting us collaborate and share with you. And thanks to everyone who made time to attend our session and your contributions to the conversation today. Once I get the video uploaded to our YouTube channel, it'll be posted to our webpage for your reference, and we'll also put the slides on the webpage too. And then, of course, I'll be following up this afternoon with all the CEU documents and the evaluation and a few different resources for you all as well. If you have not registered, we are holding QPR next week, which is Question, Persuade,
Refer.
Refer. Thanks, Jill. It's basically a very, very condensed 1 hour version of mental health first aid. And so we hope that y'all are able to join us for that one. It will not be a CEU, but we hope that you're able to join anyways. And we look forward to seeing y'all there. Thanks again, Jill, and thanks everybody for attending. I hope y'all have a wonderful afternoon and good rest of your week.
Thanks, y'all.